Your Honour.
My microphone is my
Well, welcome back. You've interrupted half-time talk here. You could probably hear a little bit of laughter in the background and one or two. I don't think you made out what was said, which is perhaps just as well. Welcome back from me, Alan Biggs, to this special edition of Sheffield Live on a Thursday. Athletics and football on the agenda. We're about to hear from James Gregg with his roundup of the whole sporting scene. Jim Phipps, co-chairman of Sheffield United, with us. Toni Minichiello, athletics coach, guru to Jessica Ennis-Hill. More from those two, including some questions that I've been asked to put to Jim, which I probably would have put anyway, but thank you for your questions on Twitter today, including the Jamie Murphy sale. What happened to the money? I know that was pledged for team strengthening. I'll put that point to Jim. Look ahead to the January transfer window and apparently some ground expansion plans at Bramall Lane. All of that. But first, the floor is yours, Mr. Gregg.
I'll rattle through it because obviously you don't want to hear from me too much. You want to hear from these two and also the gaffer, Alan, as well. So I'll rattle
Thank
through.
You. But we've just call me boss.
Just call me boss. Yeah, now you've said that, I definitely won't be doing it. We've we'll talk through. It's been a mixed bag for the Blades this week. Great win over Worcester. No cup upsets at Bramall Lane last weekend. But a loss in midweek in the JPT to Fleetwood Town maybe have derailed the Blades slightly ahead of their fixture against Southend this weekend at Bramall Lane. The Owls, they've got another week to try and get back to winning ways after the loss at Charlton last weekend, but due to the international break they might be jetting off on holiday or maybe even doing some training, who knows. But their next fixture is against Huddersfield next Saturday at Hillsborough. Non-league now, Hallam FC, good win last night for them. They're currently sitting in the playoff spots in that league, and they played Rossington last night. Michael Blythen, who's their top scorer, with the winner in that one, and they travel to Knaresborough on Saturday, while Sheffield FC, they lost 3-2 to Gould Town last weekend. They host Tividale this week, and before you ask, Tividale is near Birmingham.
Is it?
Yes,
right,
it is.
We learn something every day. I bet you didn't know that, Jim.
We do indeed. He keeps testing me.
Not the Birmingham in America, by the way.
No, not that one, near Alabama. See, I know where that is.
Expensive.
Geography's not that bad. We'll move on to rugby union.
You're better at America than you are at England.
You're right. We'll move on to rugby union now. Sheffield Tigers, they continue smashing the National 3 North League. 8 wins from 9. Another cricket score last weekend against Stockport, 57-10, and they travel to Lymm at the weekend, while Sheffield Rugby Club, they beat Cleckheaton last weekend too, and they've got Wirral this weekend as well at Abbeydale Park on Saturday, if you want to watch a very good standard of rugby union in Sheffield. Sheffield Steelers, well, mixed bag for them as well. They've won 6 from 7 at home, but on the road they've only won 1 from 5, and they've got a trip to Glasgow to play against Braehead Clan on Saturday before Sunday's all-important derby, if you want to call it that, against Nottingham Panthers on Sunday at the Arena, so that'll be a feisty clash as usual. Basketball, Sheffield Sharks, mixed weekend again for them last weekend. A huge win versus Manchester Giants by over 20 points in the league, but then they had an opportunity to go on a bit of a cup run and get themselves in the semi-final of the BBL Cup when they played Leicester in the quarter-final on Sunday, and they lost that one in overtime. Very close, but they've got a couple of weeks on the road now, and it starts away at Newcastle on Friday. And we'll move on, always finish this roundup with individuals, and Matt Fitzpatrick continues his rubbish run of form. That's a joke, by the way. He had a top 10 finish last week in his debut World Golf Championship event. He finished tied on minus 15 with none other than Jordan Spieth, who's won 2 majors this year and the world number 1 at the moment. So not bad company, is it really? And he's in action this week at the BMW Masters, and he's opened his account with a 4 under par round, leaves him tied 9th. So that's everything. You're up to date in Sheffield sporting scene.
Thank you very much. You really rattled through that.
I did rattle through that.
Brilliant. The geography's improving. A-level standard this week. Thanks, James.
No worries.
Before we direct these hostile questions at Jim here, and he's getting his baseball bat ready to bat them off, just returning finally to the scandal in world athletics. How does somebody like Joe, obviously you'll have discussed it with Jess, you've trained with her, how does an athlete like that feel about that stigma associated with their sport?
Well, it's a stigma associated to some individuals within the sport, not to Jess directly, but there's a kind of hopelessness to it, because what can you do? And it's not the first time that she's, we think, come awry because of doping. In 2007, she finished 4th in the World Championships. The lady was a Ukrainian lady, finished 2nd, Ludmila Blonska, who'd come back from a suspension of steroids. Then the following year in 2008, she tested positive for a 2nd time as life ban. So you kind of 2 and 2 coming up 5 here, and you sort of think, well, hold on a minute. Can you go back and retest samples of 2007? Should Jess have had a bronze medal from the World Championships there?
It's a very complex subject.
It is.
Even what is doping and what isn't doping is complex, isn't it?
But there's a basic, straightforward list, and it's on the list. You're not allowed to take it. It's as simple as that.
But to hide the readings, that's something else entirely.
That's the disappointing thing. Incredibly disappointing. What people may not be aware of, there are 3 bodies that test. You've got the IAAF have their own testing department and their own testing labs and so on. You have the WADA, which is the International Federation, that test and have their own testing labs. And they have accredited labs around the world, of which the Russian lab is an accredited WADA lab.
Right.
So that's where a problem has been. And then you have UK anti-doping, which is in Britain, which, to be honest, yes, there is a loss of faith, I think, in the IAAF and the WADA labs from a personal point of view. But UK anti-doping, no, I think that is probably the best in the world, if not one of the best. I think it's very difficult to hold a candle to what we do in the UK.
Well, there at the top, we have somebody that we know very well and are proud of in this city, Lord Coe, Sebastian Coe. I don't know if he realised when he took the job of president of IAAF, he'd be involved in something like this, but it's a real challenge. Have you got faith in him to sort this out?
Yes, I think so. And the reason I hesitate, and I need to explain, is that Seb has been a vice president of the IAAF for 7 years. So he's not parachuted in totally. So you kind of go, as a vice president, what did you know? But let's be honest, the vice presidents of these large bodies, how often are they really in the office? Is it more of a I use the word loosely.
Should they know?
Well, there are 5 vice presidents. There's a senior vice president, which Seb wasn't. But you sort of say, how often are you in the office? How much do you see? How much are these departments? At the same time as being a vice president, he was doing this thing called London 2012 Olympics. I don't know if anybody noticed that one. So you kind of go, he's a very busy man. So how connected? The downside of things, there's some criticism about he's an ambassador for Nike. And there's a large substantial pay, which before he was elected, his comment was that it might be a conflict of interest. Now he's elected, it's not a conflict of interest. Adidas is a major sponsor of the IAAF, so read what you will into that. And then some of the comments that he made before he got elected, which I think fundamentally were just strong comments to maintain the position of getting elected. But like Nigel Adkins to a certain extent, he's not been there very long. He's had 80, even probably as we speak, he's had about 84 days in post.
Yes.
And these things are coming at him, which he probably never anticipated. No. And you've got to go, okay, let's see what you do. Let's see what's coming out. And tomorrow, I think there's an IAAF council meeting, which is called immediately. The only downside for me is if you look at sometimes the IAAF spokesperson, they come out with comments to the press that you sort of go, I don't understand that. They're sort of saying things, denying things, and fighting back, and that you're like,
they've been made to look rather stupid for doing it.
It is. It's a little bit contradictory, and that's why I have the hesitancy of going, I don't understand that. I mean, for me, if I was in that role, I'd throw the doors open. I'd bring in somebody like Dick Pound, who was the ex-head of WADA, who did the investigation, who's a very, very tough. He was chasing down Armstrong and things like that. He's a very tough, diligent solicitor, ex-Olympic swimmer. And you go, in you come check us out, sort us out, root and branch. And that's what you do, I think.
Finally, should Russia be kicked out of the Olympics?
That's another harder one, because I think the boycotts of 80 and 84 weren't good. I think Russia have to be given a set of, let's say, instructions or criteria that they must meet. Their team has to be tested in a particular way and so on. If they don't adhere to that, then at that point maybe there's a suspension of the team. And I think that's probably what you'll get. Even Lord Coe straight away said that it's more about discussion than just going in. Because let's be brutally honest, I would suggest that there's a lot of the Russian athletes had no choice in the matter. the only way that you would be able to train full-time as an athlete and be part of an international program, and Dick Pound alluded to this and he said it, was that they had no choice in the matter. You either complied or you were out, and you wouldn't go to major championships. That's a very difficult position. So, is it fair that people who've been strong-armed and forced in a particular way, some may have done it willingly, but some may have been forced, and until all that information comes out,
can there be any fairness for everybody in a situation like this? Perhaps not.
Well, I think, but the other thing is, it might not just be Russia. Yeah. We've got other issues. If you remember back the Operation Porto in Spain, where there were lots of samples found that included football, taken from football and tennis in Spain, as well as cycling, and then the Spanish judge ordered that the samples be destroyed. So nobody ever examined what was happening in football or tennis, but cycling got hammered. So it may not be a single item.
No, very deep, very complex. If only if everything was as simple as Sheffield United and getting them into the Championship gym. 5 seasons now, and you've thrown some money at it.
Sure.
You've definitely thrown some money at it, but people are saying now that you should be throwing more at it. They're pointing to the sale of Jamie Murphy in the summer, which initially I think many supporters were critical of it. Then they thought about it, value for money perhaps for that player, £1.5 million. Is all of that money available for Nigel Adkins in January?
Not a single penny from any player transaction since we've come in has been used for anything other than first team football. That'll continue to be true.
So £1.5 million is there to spend in the January window?
The way we're set up, the football manager has the authority to deploy the resources. He works, his choices are made in connection with a technical board review. There are very limited circumstances in which the board would involve itself. I think the process will work itself out. How the resources are spent won't be a byproduct of a decision that I make personally or anyone on the board makes or the board itself makes. It's going to be the football professionals, and we think we have the right.
So when you say the football professionals, you mean Nigel Adkins and?
So we have Mal Brannigan, our MD. We've got our financial director, and then we've got the head of our academy involved in our technical board.
This is Nick Cox.
Who we make sure that every decision that we make takes into account what's in the pipeline. And so we're deciding loan or permanent transfer. We're looking down the road and saying, who have we got in the pipeline, and if we do it this way, will we cover that player who's coming along? Or so those types of considerations are built into every decision.
So you would expect quite a busy January window, would you?
I will. I don't think I'm going to comment so much on the January window, except to say that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know, that we've got a number of players and contracts that end at the end of the season. This is going to make things, I think, richly complex and interesting, and there's a lot of human travail in there with people concerned about their careers and whatnot. And
but I'm thinking,
so there's a lot of there's the first priority of the football club is to win games.
I'm thinking
so that'll be priority number one, and then there'll be all the sorting out that goes along with
obviously, how much business there is depends rather on what you do between now and then, and it could come right. You don't know. But I would imagine in the summer, after you appointed Nigel Adkins and certain signings were made, including Billy Sharp, there wouldn't have been a great anticipation of a lot needing to be done in January at that point.
I think, we didn't do everything that we wanted to do in the summer, or tried to do. And I think we have some obvious, things that need addressing, whether by people coming to the task or by looking into the academy, into the rank and file that's coming through, or externally. But I don't think there'd be any real value in doing more than saying that we'll continue on our chosen course, which is to have top football professionals who are scoped and authorized and resourced to do what they think needs doing. That all has to be done in the context of a very real organization. We've got, there's the sinewy matter of contracts that we have to, we're obliged to make good on. There's all kinds of stuff that goes into it.
You've been carrying a lot of players, haven't you? And we've seen a couple now go out on loan.
Sure. So Sparky and
McNulty and Alcock, the right back.
Alcock just went right.
So that there may be more. I'm guessing. Looking at that.
Well, again,
it's not your call.
I'm very happy. I'm very comfortable.
Yeah.
And I had another visit today with our gaffer, and I'm very confident in our direction and what the approach is and will be. I think we have good process in place, and a little patience is required, and maybe we all ought to not indulge our tendency to melt down when things aren't going just right. And I say that with a great deal of respect for people who rightly feel that we're not in the right division, that we're a big club and we shouldn't be in our 5th season in League One. And,
but you need stability, and you need to take a big breath and say, you've chosen the right manager, you've chosen the right course.
And we should proceed with quiet confidence. We exercise a great deal of care. We watch every minute of play. As a board, we are, we stay close to it, but we try not to meddle. And I think it's a key to our future success that we continue not to meddle, to let the process work itself out. And I'm happy to say that I think we've got a guy who has the right vision, in our football manager. And that the processes that he's a part of, help the club have an institutional interest in all the decisions that are made. So I think we're on the right.
You can understand the frustration of the supporters. 5 years is too long at this level. Somebody's going to take some flack. Unfortunately, it's often you. But that's natural. It's human nature. It's going to happen.
On the back of the shirt, there's a target.
But it could all turn around, of course. When there's success, you're going to get credit, and rightly so. I've been tweeted a couple of times today about a COP expansion plan. Is this right? Or
I saw that
this was. I've got to say who this was. I should David Clark on Twitter. Yeah.
So I saw the tweets, and I've been I've gotten some direct messages about it. And I think all I could say about it at this stage in time is that there have been some routine filings that preserve the planning consents or seek to preserve the planning.
So
consents.
there is a move to increase the capacity.
I don't think there's. I think our focus this season is singular. We want to get promoted, and I don't think you're going to see a League One side investing substantial funds to make a stadium larger, which we're not filling at this stage.
So this is a provisional look at what you might do in the Championship.
Look, in the past, filings were made for planning consents. Those planning consents, were granted, and there's a need to preserve that. But there's, I think, will Sheffield United be continuing to focus on promotion and not on big capital projects? I think. I think the answer to that question is pretty easy.
Okay, just finally, before we go back to Tony, you're sitting patiently, but as a Blade supporter, he's very, very interested in all of this. Is there a point at which the Prince, who you've said is not the most patient of men in terms of accepting defeat, and he's had quite a few of those to withstand, is there a point at which he might think, goodness me, I'm going to cut my losses, I'm out of there, it's not happening?
I haven't seen any quit in him. So I don't... I'm not a prophet or anything. What he may conclude at any point in the future, but I've just spent some days with him in California, working on Sheffield United stuff. I've sat with him recently at length. I think he's committed as he's ever been from the beginning.
Okay.
Would we prefer to go up sooner rather than later? Yeah, we would have preferred to go up, last year or the year before.
And he made it quite clear at the outset that the only profit in it for him was Premier League football.
Still true. And the stats tell you that almost the only way to make money in English football, professional football, is by being in the Prem.
13 million is quite a lot of money just to write off, to pull out of a project. So he's carrying on down that
sure,
road,
and it's set up so that really the best route to ever gaining a recovery on that investment is to get to the Prem. So we shouldn't be, I think impatience would yield the most certain path to losing all of the investment. Okay, so I think you have to hold tight and trust in the process, and really, if we can manage it, to avoid making constant changes and trying to restart. That's not how high performance individuals or high performance organizations work.
And you don't get a sense of identity in a team and a club if you're constantly changing manager, because all managers have different methods, don't they, and different approaches.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And I think also the strengthening of our technical board process is intended to provide an institutional identity to how we play, etc., and that should be done in such a way so that in some future day when we're making a change, the technical board process has been strengthened to a point where we can maintain our identity through a change.
Yeah, Jim, thanks very much. Toni, Jess has achieved so much, and you wonder sometimes where the motivation comes from when you've won the World Championship gold on top of an Olympic gold. But it's there as strong as ever in her, isn't it? I mean, she's had a child in between. And did that really fire her, that people said, oh, she can't come back and be as effective?
This is the 17th year of working with Jess. So, and to reiterate, it does take time. You do, working with her from the age of 13 and just working and then cajoling. And then around 16, 17 is when a lot of people fall out. At 17, they fall out. And I think we were fortunate, or I was fortunate, that she ended up on international under-20 teams about 3 years early. So that gave her another spur of motivation, because wow, I'm competing for Great Britain, and so and at every step. And then 2006 she got a bronze medal at Commonwealth Games, and it was little steps. So that moved forwards. After London, I must admit, it was a difficult time. It was, because you achieve your lifetime's ambition, and then it's like, okay, I'm 26, do I stop? Yeah. I'm a little bit young to stop, but I've achieved everything I ever really set out to do when I first went down to Don Valley as a 9-year-old. So you but then the following year was more about marriage, and then she got injured after getting married, and then she got pregnant, which wasn't planned, and you sort of, even for me, you kind of go into this holding pattern. But no, Reggie has brought new motivation, and no British woman has ever retained her Olympic title in track and field. That would be, that'd be something. Nobody had really come back from pregnancy in a power sport and done as well as she'd done, and to win was just a huge bonus, because it was never a focus. It was all about Rio, getting the qualifying for Rio, and we only decided about a couple of days before the final selection meeting to go in the first place. So
looking a few years down the line, are you going to be coaching young Reggie, do you think?
I'll let his mum decide that one. I don't know. I think she would be happy if he was involved in sport. Dad's a United fan, so if he's playing on a youth team, or if he's playing golf, or if he's playing cricket, whatever. I think they'd just be happy that he's a happy child and he's involved in sport. Would be a bonus.
At this point,
let's make sure you leave with Nick Cox's phone number.
Nick is a forthcoming guest in here. Owls, Laurie Madden, former Sheffield Wednesday player in the Premier League, is a guest on this show next week. Got to slip that in. But so is John Gannon, former Sheffield United player in the Premier League. If you've missed any of this, Blades fans and those who are interested, obviously, in Toni's views, this programme is repeated at 11 p.m. tonight. It's also on Vimeo later. Thanks ever so much for your company. Thank you to Jim. Thank you, Toni. Thank you, James. See you next week. See you. Bye.